I can feel that we're getting closer to driving this thing. And there you have it, folks. 2 radiators installed. And now it doesn't look like we got a whole lot done this time, but we did have to redo the whole entire steering. We have a pedal box so we can start working on our brake lines when we do get our master cylinders in. We've got both radiators in there with the side pods now. The brand new Vamp steering. Oopsie daisy. Oh wow, this is so cool. Previously on the build, we got all the suspension done. And now what I want to work on specifically today is getting these pedals done. Now I somehow have to make room for a gas and a brake pedal, but I'd also like to have a clutch pedal in there too. So I'm gonna have to put my skinny boots on, see if we have enough room for it. But one big issue I have is that the floor that my heels are sitting on right now is too tall, and we have to build the bars lower there because my toes actually touch our shock mounts. So 1 step forward, 2 steps back. At least it steers though. The seat still needs some reinforcements. It's just self-tapered in there with 2 screws. It's okay, seat. I'm here for you. You're doing such a good job. We're gonna put our straight piece of pipe in here. We're gonna put a small bend on one end, hopefully lower the front down just a little bit, maybe get an extra inch and a half clearance where our actual toes go. It's gonna shorten the bar a little bit, so we have to bring the other bar up a little closer. About as best as we could do right now for what we have. So without redesigning everything, we're gonna try and make subtle adjustments to give us enough room. We're gonna go probably 10 degrees here. Our ends need a little bit of cleaning up where I just kind of hack them off. Man, my drill has seen better days. So is my hole saw apparently. Oh yeah, we're missing a tooth. Still clean though. So my hole saw is missing a tooth. And typical me, it grabbed and then the drill went whoop and then hit me right in the face. I'm gonna have a black eye tomorrow. Well, live and learn, but I've already done this before, so just keep living. Now all that for an extra inch, maybe. Did it work? Okay, so our toes just about touch it, but they don't, which is good. I don't know how I'm gonna put a clutch in there, unfortunately. I've been juggling back and forth between my 2 projects in here while I've been waiting for parts to arrive. Obviously we're in Canada and stuff arrives by Moose, so it takes a little bit longer, a couple extra weeks. But I feel like a pimp right now. I don't think I've had a cool pedal box like this, but we've got this really nice Wilwood pedal box here. It doesn't have any cylinders on it because I didn't know what the bore size I needed, so I just bought the bare bones. Unfortunately, due to spacing, we're gonna have to move our steering rack, and I'll show you why in a second, but first, just take a look at this thing. This is very cool. Throttle pedal, brake pedal, clutch. We'll center up this mock-up plate for now, but the real reason why we need to move the steering shaft is that the brake pedal essentially needs to be directly where the steering column is, because you can't fit the gas and the brake on one side of the steering column and have enough room to hit one and not the other. But the steering column does need to be offset a little bit here in order to accommodate. The obvious answer was just to move the steering column over a little bit, which I don't know if it's gonna reduce driver feel if I move it offset to the left a little bit. So I think what I need to do first is remove the steering rack components. And I know it's a little bit 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but I think I need to remove the steering components and get the pedals exactly where I need them to be comfortable for myself. Because the geometry isn't perfect with the steering regardless, I don't mind changing it up a little bit just to you know, give us a better feel when we're in the car. I think we're gonna permanently mount this plate in here. Ooh, shiny. M5 rib nut, M5 rib nut. Ooh, rib nuts. And it looks like our pedal set is gonna be perfect right here, right in front of the steering rack, right in the way. Poor planning, Kyle, poor planning. Naughty, naughty, poor planning, Kyle, poor planning. Oh well, we having fun. These pedals are so tight in there. Well, that's what we needed. Fortunately, the steering system doesn't work anymore. Something about poor planning and piss poor performance resembles me. All right, we're at that point of the build where I feel a little bit overwhelmed, to be honest. And there's things on here that I can do, that I need to do, but I don't have the little bits and pieces to do it. So, master cylinder for the brakes, the axles for the driveline, stuff like that. I'm just waiting on it for shipping wise. So what I've done to alleviate some of the stress is break things down into smaller portions that I know that I can do. So we built this side of the board, which includes like things like triangulating the frame. I can totally do that. I have the materials to do it, and it just takes time. We can build a shifter, that could be fun. Mount the seat and the supports, relocate the steering, because obviously we need to move it after our pedal box. We can build the exhaust, which also sounds really fun. And we can build the rad support side pod pieces, which we need to do for the cooling part of it. Now, I'm not claiming that we're 90% done, but like everybody says, the last 10% of a build takes 90% of the time. And I feel like that's where I'm at right now. As a singular person, it's getting a little bit overwhelming. So break it down into smaller steps, pick one of these things, focus on it, get it done, cross it off, and I'll feel much better about myself. Maybe. Well, stop complaining, start in the middle. First up, new lower bar here for the seat. Now the bottom of the seat should sit between the two bars, and we just have to put a plate like middle way through those bars with a piece of rubber on it, and the bottom of the seat will just sit on that rubber. We'll obviously have to stabilize it from there, but technically this should give us a much better seating position for our pedals. It sits us a little more upright, and it gives us a better leverage on our knees for the pedals without hitting this bar that goes through right here. I don't know, once I start working on it, I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be so much fun. Couple extra bars in the middle. Probably gonna add some more in the back half over here. But first, the steering is making me mad. I'm gonna cut our steering box out of here, see what we can do with it at least. Kind of annoying. Pretty simple. We just took a piece of pipe here, drilled some holes in it, welded a piece of angle iron on it so it'll be flat face to flat face. This is gonna go on here. This is just a test. I don't even know if this is gonna work, to be honest. Not exactly perfectly straight either, to be honest. And that piece is gonna get welded on in here for now. Now I would love for the steering to be able to come up and over this brake pedal right here, and then get a U-joint right here and run this just below the shocks. I think this U-joint will do that angle. This is about as far as the brake pedal is gonna be depressed, so I think we'll be okay. Oh my God, the elusive garage kitty. Where you going? Well, goodbye steering for now. Hammer! So sad, that took so much work to make. All right, we're gonna test a theory here. I think that I can take this tube and I can notch out the top side of this one to fit under this bar, and and the bottom side of this one to fit on that bar, and I think that'll work. We're just going to offset our tubing notcher, which is one great benefit of this tubing notcher is you can actually offset it. A lot of them don't have this feature. That's why Rogue Fab is the best. So I think we're gonna do something like that. Two bearings inside this piece and then a rod going straight this way into this. Sorry, just watching my wife Gina. That's what I have in my ear. My wife Gina on Twitch right now. Her link will be down in my link tree. She's body painting herself right now, but pause that. 89 people watching her. So cheap Amazon bearing, 3/4. This is what I use. These fit inside the Schedule 40 pipe. And these fit in there perfect, and they're cheap, and they're prime. Very simple bearing setup. Like I said, cheap, easy, works for what we need it. The hand mallet, and those are 5/8. I have some 3/4 ones around somewhere. Gotta get these ones out first. Bang, Kyle! Oops. All right, let's test it out. There we go. The piece is tack welded in place. The steering wheel comes a little bit more straight out than it used to before, but sure. The rod is gonna go in between the two shocks. And then the angle, it's gonna be something like that. I'm just gonna go buy a piece of steel for this now because I cut up my last piece of steel, and we'll get that all tackled in place. Should be good to go. Oh yeah, fresh rod, Canadian Tire. Doesn't even fit. I think that's way better than it was before. Now that we have the length, we just need to assemble it all. Okay, the wheels are a little towed in now, and I want to remake these things. I want rack spacers out here. I really want the rack to pivot right here where these are, and then that'll give us the best bump steer possible. Oh yeah! All right, our tires are towed in a little bit more because we moved the position of the rack, so the steering arm got a different angle on it. I need some rack spacers, and I need to move the pivot for the rack further out again. But everything's in place, which is great because I spent a lot of days trying to figure out how I was gonna do this. I always knew that the steering was in the wrong spot and I had to put a pedal box in there. And I contemplated putting a pedal on the right and a pedal on the left, a gas and a brake, with no clutch. But the engine needing a clutch, I figured try and make it work. So I think we made it work now. Seems to be okay. Gives us a lot of room. The steering's actually a little bit higher, which is better for my elbows, a little bit worse for my vision. Lots of room for a shifter here now. All the pedals are working. Oh, that is it's like a sigh of relief to me to just see this the way it is right now. I feel, maybe not to you guys, but I feel like I overcame a giant hurdle just by finishing the steering and the pedals because I always knew that it was going to be an issue. The steering is a little bit stiffer. Oh, it's got Formula 1 acronym like this. The inside tire turns less than the outside tire, which is I think how Formula 1 cars work, but it might just be because of the length of the tie rods too. As you can see, the level of the rack is actually really good because this bar and the lower control arm are almost parallel. The only thing we need to do is extend the rack out so the pivot point is actually the same pivot point as the lower control arm, and that should get rid of a lot of our bump steer. Now in the rear I said I was going to use Miata axles, and that's what these are. It appears like this shorter one might actually fit. I just have to move this rod out of the way for now, if I can do that. Man, that might actually fit on there. It could definitely just bolt in like that, I think. I'd have to really check on where the CV joint is on the inside in here. It is a little bit close. I can fit my finger between this and the CV axle, but this actually has to move back a little tiny bit when we build our new belt crank anyways. So that one might fit. I have to check the measurement on this to see if I have a tube for the other side, but the other side has to get cut in the middle, sleeved and extended, which shouldn't be a big deal, but we all know how that goes and it's probably gonna be a big deal. I figured it out. Despite making some significant changes in the cart and making some progress and headway, the cart visually hasn't changed much in the last couple episodes. I've been thinking to myself, what am I gonna do next? And I think the next thing that we should do should be visually appealing. It helps with motivation to push you further. And if you just take a quick look at it, you'll notice one huge difference about this cart that you don't see in a lot of formula cars. There's nothing in the side pods yet. Yet being the key word. So what needs to happen is this. I have 2 of these radiators. I'm not sure if I'm gonna need 2 of them. I have 2 of them. And these things are probably gonna go something like this. The bad part is we're almost out of 1¼ inch tubing, which we started out with $2,000 worth of tubing. We're almost out of it. I do have this, and this was the main hoop from another project that I was doing that ultimately got scrapped. So we're gonna utilize this, make our little side pod pieces, mount our radiators. All right, first things first, we're gonna cut this tube in half. Need to figure out where it goes. The idea is going to be something like that, mount the radiator somewhere in that side pod area somewhere. I do want to run a bar from this top chassis bar here down to the side pod just to give this some strength, because this alone is not going to be that strong. Even though it doesn't need to be strong, I'm still going to add a little bar there. And on this side too, it's finally getting like some sort of shape to it and it looks pretty cool. I like it. Maybe Lex can help me out here a little bit, but unlike a formula car, you would normally see a side pod on the side like this. And it would have like a small opening tunnel here and like bubble out a little bit, get the cooling through the radiator, and then there's some sort of like way that it comes out of the side pod there, whether it's straight at the back or there's fins through the top or whatever. And then we can always add ducting to these radiators if we really need it. Like I can build a little shroud that like points it forward straight into the side pod. We are doubling up the radiators. I think we'll only need 1, but if I put 2 at an angle and they're a little bit less efficient, then I think 2 is gonna suffice. So we're gonna run 2 radiators, 1 on each side just to make it even, and then probably throw an oil cooler in there somewhere too afterwards. Now, to mount our radiator, I thought about using some angle iron from basically here to here, and mounting our radiator here to here or something like this. I think to save a little bit of weight, instead of using angle iron, we're gonna use some flat plate, and I'll just notch it out. It'll be plenty of strong because it only has to hold the radiator vertically. There's no side loading on the radiator, and I think that's gonna be our best bet. So we're gonna notch it a little bit offset. You can see that the hole saw is not exactly in the middle of this, and it'll end up looking like that. And we can basically just lay it on the tube, and now it's not disrupting the bottom plate of the floor. Cut 1 more in this side, right over there. I ended up cutting off my bung here for the radiator. I don't need these bungs. I can put whatever bungs I want in there, and I'm probably gonna run AN hoses anyways, but this was just obstructing where I wanted to put it for now. So I'll get some mounting holes in that before I weld it on, and we'll be good to go. Now we just gotta do the same thing on the other side. Always easier on the first side. Trying to match it, always harder. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm gonna try and make a little piece now that uses these top 2 holes right here. They're actually on the inboard side on the other one, just the offset of the radiator. And make a piece that goes from here into there. That should solidify our radiator. So what I'm really trying to do with the list of things that we have are things that involve like fabricating and thinking and designing versus mindless things like doing brake lines and AN lines and fuel lines and stuff like that. So those things will go quick as long as I put the hours in. This stuff is the stuff that like boggles my brain at night. Quick little plate, oop. there you have it, folks. 2 radiators installed. I still need to put the bungs on them, and we still need to figure out how we're getting the coolant to them. I think I'm going to run these things in parallel. That way they each get like equal flow of coolant through them, and then we can block off the ducting going into the engine if we need to, if they get too cool, like the engine doesn't get up to temperature. And now it doesn't look like we got a whole lot done this time, but we did have to redo the whole entire steering. We have a pedal box so we can start working on our brake lines. When we do get our master cylinders in, we've got both radiators in there with the side pods now. The brand new Vamp steering, which doesn't have a collapsible link in it, and I'm not sure it's gonna need one with this stupid angle on that. I guess the other thing I can do to help the steering is weld something right here. That way, if anything does push the steering, it can only collapse like this far into this piece, and then the whole steering can only move that far. We did get a set of Miata axles, but I do have to lengthen one. The only thing is it's a really weird size, and I need to find a piece of pipe that's the right size sleeve for it. I can feel that we're getting closer to driving this thing, and it's making me more motivated. There is a lull period in the middle. They always say that your most motivation's in the beginning when you first start and right at the end when you're about to finish. So we're starting to crest the hill to where we're almost done now, and I can see it. It's starting to look like what I had envisioned, and I'm super enjoying it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you watch this one. It's the previous video if you haven't already. And if you have, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Peace easy, get dabbing.